kufadhiliwa viatu kwa mara ya kwanza baada ya miaka, na amesema kwamba ni furaha kubwa sana.
National Women's Day is celebrated annually on 8th of March. It offers an opportunity to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and communities. The Standard Media Group, in partnership with Plan International, will be marking the day to celebrate our women. This event will be live on KTN News.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back to KTN News, and this is a special report on celebrating the most important people here in the world. I'm not saying the men are not important, but of course, women play a very important role in the society, not just about giving back to children, but ensuring their house is well kept, the role they play in the society. But have women really made some achievements in terms of employment, in terms of job opportunities, promotions, and also their protection in the society? That is a discussion you're having with me here on KTN News Center. I am Brenda Zederadira, and joining me this morning is a woman who's actually made it in the society. And I'm introducing to you Kate Maina, who's a country director of Plan International Kenya. But I need to give you the profile of Kate, the woman you're seeing right there. She'll be talking to us about International Women's Day. And just before I give you her profile, Kate, allow me to tell you happy International Women's Day.
And a happy International Women's Day to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much. You've achieved a lot of things. You'll be talking to us about it and what the society can, the role that society can play, the government and also families at the community level to ensure that women are well taken care of, not leaving behind the male gender. So first, let's have a look at the profile of Kate Maina. All right, and just before we get Kate's profile and who she is, what she's achieved, Kate, let's begin with this year's theme, this year's International Women's Day. Are we really living according to 2021's theme?
So, yeah, good question, Brenda. So the theme for 2021 is Women in Leadership, achieving gender equality amidst COVID-19. We have definitely seen major strides where we have seen different sectors really recognizing the potential, the unlimited potential of women. And you're seeing women breaking glass ceilings. We're seeing women and girls' voices, you know, spaces being opened up for women and girls to speak. And we are seeing the gender conversation happening at the national level. Yes, there's a lot we can be proud of as a country.
And you know, when you're talking about women in leadership here in the country, we've seen that has been a thorn in the flesh, you know, especially for the men. And the argument has always been women want things on a silver platter. And that was the discussion, especially on the floor of the House at the National Assembly, when it came to, you know, women vouching, urging their fellow colleagues, the men, to help them pass the 2/3 gender rule, something that has never seen the light of day.
But I think it's unfair to say that women are asking to be handed things on a silver platter. I don't think there's any conversation, there can be any discussion around the power of women. Women work very hard. In fact, one would say women have to work double hard to achieve some of the things that men get given very easily. I think the fact that we're asking men to be part of this conversation is because we see men as partners. We do live in a patriarchal society, and so we want men to value the role that women can play and should play. And so asking them to support the 2/3 gender rule is just that, men as partners who are committed to championing gender equality. It's not about being handed on a silver plate. We want to work with men to achieve this because it's enshrined in our constitution.
And you know, talking about working with men to achieve this, then how can men, you know, get involved? How can they be more involved in helping the women to achieve their dreams in the society? Because when I also look at the leadership of the country, when women were fighting for their rights in terms of the 2/3 gender rule, we really didn't see the sort of political leadership that women expected from the president himself and also from the opposition leader. Because if they had actually rallied the men in the political parties, the bill would have been passed. So how can men be involved, get involved in achieving the women agenda in the country?
Yeah, it's quite a quagmire. It's actually ironic in many ways, because in different sectors we see women being given those spaces and places. So it's quite interesting to see why achieving the 2/3 gender rule is becoming so problematic. It's becoming such a big issue, and we need to unpack the reasons why. Is there a fear factor around that? Why are men who outside the public space have empowered their women and their girls and their daughters, why are they shy? Why are they feeling shy in enabling that 2/3 gender role? I think it's a conversation that men need to have with themselves in terms of why are we being dogmatic in terms of achieving what is already enshrined in our Constitution? It's a conversation that we need to continue having. By asking for the 2/3 rule, we are asking for equality, really, and for those corridors of power and decision-making to be opened up, especially when you look at the population. We know 51–52% of the Kenyan population are women, so you cannot ignore that gender, and you cannot not give them that space.
All right. And when it comes to breaking the glass ceiling, we've always said we need the men's support, but then women have always been termed as our own enemy when seeking some leadership positions here in the country. Look at women like Martha Karua, who's tried on several occasions to vie for the top seat, the presidency. Look at women like Charity Ngilu, who've also tried, vying for that top seat. Yet we are not seeing other women rally behind them. Yet we are calling on the same men to rally behind the women, and women are not doing that.
Achieving gender equality is multifaceted. We need women to support each other, but we also need men to support women in the same way that women support men. I think we need to be we need to search our soul. Is Kenya ready for a female president? Is Kenya ready for a deputy female president? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves as a nation. And, what is it going to take to be able to open up those spaces? We've heard about the BBI. We've seen the positions that are inherent in that document. It will be interesting to see if we will see women leaning into those opportunities at that executive level.
So then who has failed women in the society? Is it women who fail themselves, or is it the men or the leadership of the country?
I think it's a complex issue. I think it's a combination of women perhaps not daring to grasp those opportunities, and those that dare to want to lean in, not having the support from both men and women. We do live in a patriarchal society, as I said. It's about men who are also in leadership who need to open those spaces up for women. It's a complex issue. It also goes back to systemic issues, the education system, and I know we'll be talking about this a little bit more, Brenda. What does it take to achieve gender equality in Kenya? It goes back to the basic things around education. And then we need to talk about the issues we are seeing, teenage pregnancies, child marriages. These are the things that are precursor to gender inequality, even as we seek those high level of offices.
In fact, it just piqued my mind, Kate, because I was about to ask you, what does it really take to achieve women equality? And when I'm talking about that, I'm not only talking about it here in the country, but globally, because women equality touches on so many things. When you talk about employment, we talk about education, we talk about women's voice in the society when it comes to breaking the traditional beliefs in terms of FGM, in terms of inheritance.
It's many things and so much more, Brenda. It goes back to our society, our cultural norms and practices. Do they propel girls and women to be able to move forward and achieve their potential, or do they hold girls back? And we have seen, I think COVID-19 in itself was a pandemic, but it also showed the shadow pandemics that came with that. You know, when you have a whole generation that is falling pregnant or is being forced into child marriage, then that's a whole generation in several counties that will not be able to realize their full potential. Women have unlimited potential, and we need to create those spaces. So it goes back to the systemic issues, the cultural and harmful practices that we have in our societies, and ensuring that girls are retained in school. We know that there is gender parity at the point of enrollment, but somewhere along the way, when we look at the progression rates and the transition rates, girls are falling off. They're becoming pregnant, unintended pregnancies, and they are being married off very young.
Yes, we might say girls are being married off young, the cases of, you know, in terms of teenage pregnancy and rape cases. But we are seeing also women playing a role in this, sadly. The reason as to why, Kate, I'm saying that, it's because when probably you've watched it in the media, read it in the newspapers of how children have been raped and their own parents, their mothers, try to negotiate with the perpetrator, you know, sort of like, let's settle this out of the court. Let's not bring an embarrassment to the society.
Yes, very true, Brenda. It is unfortunate. But, you know, this is also the face of poverty. This is how poverty reels its head out. And this is where we see that people who should be defending the girls who've been victimized and defiled are resorting to out-of-court settlements, cash transactions. We've also seen in several communities sex for fish, sex for sanitary towels. It is the face of poverty, Brenda. And so we do also need to look at the divide between the haves and the have-nots, and what we're going to do to really scale up some of those interventions that we have seen in the country that Mama Mboga, Wanjiko can be able to access so that they can empower themselves. A woman empowered at the household level will be the greatest defender of their children. And I believe that to be true of men as well. So it's a whole quagmire of issues. And to the conversation that you just spoke to really is about poverty. It's about poverty. But it's also about, we need to do more to create awareness on how the system will support me if I have such a case. Where do I report it? How will that case be handled? So it requires various stakeholders. We've seen in many counties where this is working, we have court users committees that are putting in place a system to address defilement of girls. And so all hands on deck to ensure that perpetrators are brought to book and that justice comes through for those girls, and it comes through in a timely way, and that parents are able to identify forms of violence, call them out, and become defenders of their own children. But as long as you have all this shadowed under poverty, it becomes very difficult for caregivers to seek justice through the system.
So how can that woman be removed out of poverty? And I'm talking about, because yes, this year's theme, you're talking about women in leadership, but at the same time, you're talking about women who are still lingering in poverty. They do not even have that highest quality, the level of education. Some have dropped out of school. Some have just decided, you know what, it's never that serious in life. Let me just take one day at a time.
Yeah, it's really about economic empowerment and ensuring that those opportunities are available to everybody. It's ensuring that financial services and products are gender transformative, that they meet the unique needs of women. We know women are they're risk adverse, more risk adverse than men are. So it's identifying those financial products that would be palatable for women. It's also about village savings loaning, you know, VSLAs, what we call VSLAs, table banking, women coming together. We've seen that as a game changer in a lot of the communities that we've worked in as Plan International. We know that when women come together to save together, to support together, it is very transformational. So it's about identifying those unique services and products that will allow women to want to access them and to utilize those products so that they can empower themselves at the household level. When there is security at the household level, it is so then the natural course of action comes into play. I'm able to send my children to school. I'm able to keep them in school. I'm able to buy sanitary towels for my daughter. And I'm able to ensure that my son also goes through that school system. And that's how gender equality can be achieved at that grassroots level, economic empowerment of the households that are caring for these children.
And when we look at the protection of women in the society, let's shift the conversation to the laws that have been put in the country to protect women. Do you think this is enough? Because there's been an argument that's just, it's on paper, but implementing, it's something else.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Brenda. Kenya is known for its very bold and very forward-looking constitution. Many countries look to us to see our legal frameworks, to look at our policies. We are known for really tabling thought leadership pieces when it comes to our framework and our policies. Where we do fall behind is in operationalizing that. And so it's important that we translate these powerful documents into practice. The laws are there, so we need to understand what are the systemic issues, what are the bottlenecks that are hindering operationalization of those laws and those policies and those bills. We need to ensure that the right resources are cascaded to address these issues. So it's about operationalizing it and having a very concrete roadmap on what it will take to deliver this through. And it's ensuring that the system in its totality is working.
So don't you think somehow, just from explanation, Kate, I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but then somehow do you think then women representatives in Parliament, and when I talk about Parliament, I mean the National Assembly and the Senate Assembly, have failed women in terms of fighting for their rights?
I think women representatives have such a powerful and unique opportunity to address some of these issues we're discussing today, Brenda. As women, as caregivers, they are at the seat where decision-making is happening. They're very influential. And as I said earlier, they need to continue to champion the cause of women and girls in every space that they occupy. But they also need to bring men along as well. Otherwise, with fewer voices, it's very hard to move things in Parliament, isn't it? Because we have not achieved the two-thirds gender. And so we need our women representatives to continue to champion this. And we have seen model women politicians who are taking on specific causes and really pushing them through. We need to see more of that. We need to see continuity, and we need to see them bringing men along in that journey so that there's a successful completion.
So let's shift our focus, Kate, to COVID-19 and the adverse effects that it's had on women during this time that the country was on lockdown. The entire world was on lockdown, but now we've seen the government reduce, some of the lockdowns that it had put in place.
Yes.
So my question is, Kate, when we look at this period of COVID-19, cases of gender-based violence on women was on the rise because some women were actually living with the perpetrators, and also women who had health conditions like, terminal illness were not able to access medical treatment right on time.
Yes. So what's the question, Brenda?
So my question is, let me just take you back. So we're in a period of COVID-19, Kate, a season of COVID-19, and the adverse effects it's had on women. Don't you think probably women were left out in terms of accessing medical treatment? Because I remember when the president put a lockdown, the day he announced there's a curfew from, this curfew is beginning today. And there's some women who are actually talking to members of the press, holding their children, saying, we were traveling, we can't even go back. I've left my child with a neighbor. Don't you think the government was not considerate enough when it comes to women's issues?
Yeah, I think we needed to contend with the ripple effects of that curfew, and we needed to identify highly vulnerable groups and ensure that the system would continue to respond to them. Yes, Brenda, when you recall those cases, I remember seeing them on news. It was quite harrowing to see women in labor who couldn't access services. So there's something to be said about ensuring that the decisions we make are gender sensitive. I think that is the bottom line. But the COVID did reveal, to your point, Brenda, the face of gender inequality. You know, decision making does need to be gender sensitive. We need to ensure that the policies we are putting in place and the guidelines are gender appropriate, they're gender transformative. We need to ensure that the unique needs of women and girls are being taken care of, because they do have unique needs that men do not have.
But then, you know, some women felt like our cases, you know, our issues are not being well addressed with the government, because some of them were actually living with perpetrators. And during that time, Kate, probably you might have also watched it on, you know, on TV, read it on the newspaper, had it on radio, of how women were being killed, others were being raped. And the saddest thing is that some women were actually living with the perpetrators. Yes. And remember, there's a curfew. So at what point do you expect this woman to leave the house and go report the perpetrator to the police station? Yeah.
You know, COVID really did shine a light on shadow pandemics, as we call them. It's not that issues of gender-based violence and teenage pregnancies, Brenda, were not there before. They were exacerbated by COVID. We still remember 2 years ago, girls sitting for exams pregnant. We've seen cases of women appearing on national news, beaten and bruised, maimed by men. What COVID did was to shine a light on those injustices. And it heightened it, because to your point, women were being locked up with their abusers. And so there's a lot that needs to continue to be done in terms of increasing that awareness. People need to know, you know, they need to understand the gender-based, where you can call. There's a hotline for where you can call. You know, there are systems in place where women can be rescued. Are they available across all counties? Are they fully functional? Those are the conversations we need to be having. As we talk about women in leadership and achieving gender equality in COVID, we need to now drill down on those shadow pandemics and be very systematic about addressing them.
And you know, when you're talking about being systematic about, you know, when it comes to addressing women agenda, it is really sad, Kate, and that when the world is talking about a COVID-19 vaccine, pregnant women do not know their fate, because sadly, they cannot receive this vaccine, and the women feel left out. Yes.
I was just checking up on the government rollout plan and who is being prioritized for the vaccines. I can see why Kenya has made certain decisions in terms of protecting our health workforce. It makes a lot of sense, because they are the front line, at the front line, ensuring that there's care and treatment for patients. But I think when we talk about phase 2 and phase 3, there's an opportunity, if we really want to ensure that we are gender sensitive, that phase 2 and phase 3 takes into account the unique needs of women. Yes. All right. In informing that vaccine rollout.
So it's good to start the conversation with what this year's theme means to us as women here in the country and globally. We've talked about where the government has failed, where the women leadership in this country has failed, and the challenges we've faced. But then, Kate, I'd like to shift our focus to the achievements that women have had, not only in the country, but also globally, including your achievement. I mean, being the country director of Plan International Kenya is not something small. I mean, you had your own ladder to climb. But before we start talking about that achievement, I'd like us to have a look at a story that was done by my colleague Timothy Otieno, because, you know, raising a child in an informal settlement area is usually no mean feat, and one woman in Nairobi's Dandora estate is determined to ensure the upbringing of children in the area significantly improves. So KTN's Timothy Otieno visited Mercy Wanjiru, who defied the stereotypes of being a woman and began an initiative which is changing the lives of children in her community. I'd like us to take a look at that story.
You already know it. This is the Sister Brother Love community-based organization. Here, You find children of all ages being the best version of themselves and having fun while at it. It's a safe space for the young ones, tucked in the middle of Dandora Phase 2 slum, which is often associated with poverty and crime. One woman has fought her own stereotype to create an environment which she hopes will enable the children of this community to thrive despite the challenges.
After seeing so many kids being unsupervised after school hours, wanakuanga nje wakirandaranda, so I thought, like, what if we had a place where these kids could come under adult supervision and they do productive things, other than, being out there with no one to watch over them.
That is how in 2019, she mobilized funds and decided to develop this haven for these children. The colorful, well-thought-out designs and manicured lawns is now a home away from home for over 50 children who have since enrolled into the after-school program. When Mercy acquired this piece of land, this is how it looked like.
Before hii land ilikuwa inatumika kama like a farm. First ilikuwa waste, like just a wasteland lying there idly. Then mboga za kienyeji zilikuwa zinapandwa. Then I thought, because at first initially tulikuwa na hiyo ofisi, I thought because the kids wanazidi kuwa wengi, I thought, what can we do with this? Something that benefits the community.
2.5 months of hard work, mostly from volunteers, resulted into the grounds enjoyed by the children here today.
They may be jealous. Be happy anyway.
Before the start of each day's activities, a devotion is held.
What you spend years building.
Glenda Rose Wangoi is 8 years old and was the first child enrolled into the program, which is meant to reach out to vulnerable children and provide them with strong and enduring role models.
Yes, it's a very beautiful place and I like it.
Why do you like it so much?
Because it has cartoons that I love. It has a shade.
Mercy has enlisted the help of 9 volunteers who work tirelessly to instill discipline, positive values, and enrich the young minds here for future success.
People could not, they could not understand what I was trying to do, and still some people don't understand what I'm doing.
I come here to do my homework, learn new things, and to know about more things.
It's the drive, determination, and sheer dedication of one woman to change her community that will see the likes of Rose and many other children like her grow up in a more conducive environment.
Not many such safe spaces where children get to play and learn in a conducive environment exist in this part of the city. But people like Mercy are determined to ensure that this will be just one among many of such spaces where children get to grow and develop in an environment that is conducive for their upbringing. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Just looking at those kids making the dance moves, it takes me back to the days when we used to enjoy our times as children. But then, Kate, just before you take a commercial break, because we need to come back and continue this discussion, I'd like to get your feedback on that story that my colleague Timothy Otieno has filed. That woman who's decided, you know what, I needed to be out there helping other women.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. That was a beautiful clip and very humbling, and really to see a woman take charge. And that's what it's going to take. We have to challenge what we see as not being right, and what she has done is to challenge that, but she's also taken responsibility. And she's found her space to respond to the issues that she sees those children are needing. So it's wonderful. That's her way of choosing to challenge what really is not right and responding to that in a very practical way. So I celebrate her, and behind her are so many other women like that who've chosen to challenge bias, inequality, stereotypes, and there are many ways that we can do that.
And when we come back, she'll be telling us about, you know, the various leadership positions you've had, and also what inspired you and why, you know, to be where you are today, you know, being the country director of Plan International Kenya, Kate Maina. So allow me and Kate to take a short breather. We'll be right back with more on this discussion about the International Women's Day.
This is KTN News.
Introducing Ushindi Cream Bar Soap. It foams well, is gentle on skin and hands, and cleans your clothes and dishes well too. Available in 1 kg and 800 gram bars and 175 gram tablets. Also available in all your favorite variants. Ushindi, a quality product from Pwani Oil Products Limited.
Agriculture was previously a function of national government under the Ministry of Agriculture. It is currently a devolved ministry, no longer under the sole control of the national government.
The biggest producer of Irish potatoes in this country is Elgeyo Marakwet, because the production has been concentrated around Mount Elgon alone. That's about 3-4 wards.
It was expected that devolving this key ministry would lead to better agricultural production at county level.
Our plan from this year is to plant in 22 wards. In other words, we are going to increase production by more than 10 times.
To find out how your county and others have taken up this role, watch Ion County every Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. only on KTN Farmers TV.
Tunajaribu kusupport, kuempower wanawake wakuje wa learn.
Na nikajua kwamba kutafuta suluhisho ni kuwa katika ile meza ambayo sasa ma decisions zinaweza zikaongelewa.
Nikaanza kuvolunteer kwa children's home nikitoka kazi, wakati niko holiday, weekends na volunteer kwa children's home.
Wengine wananiuliza, wewe unafanya kazi ya wanaume, kwa nini usitafute kazi ya wanawake?
Mimi niseme kwamba ni mwanamke ngangari.
Ungana nami Cecilia Wakesho Mathuva kila siku ya Jumapili kwenye makala ya mwanamke ngangari.
You're welcome to the FKF Review Show. My name is Robinson Okenyi.
Mambo yaliendelea kuwa mazuri kabisa. Haikuweza kuwa rahisi.
For Gor Mahia, this is a team that had an early pre-season. Yeah, they should have known each other very well.
Reassemble and gel up. It will not actually give us a challenge.
Manake anafunga bao.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. Having the discussion about International Women's Day with Kate Maina, the country director, Plan International Kenya. So, Kate, allow me to put you on the spotlight for just a little bit. We're talking about the achievements of women here in the country. So what really motivated you to be who you are today? And talk to us also probably the sort of challenges that you faced as you were climbing the ladder.
Thank you, Brenda. So I think it's about, my story is about defining my purpose, but it's also about people along the way who gave me opportunity. It's also about hard work, but it's about being confident as well to lean into opportunities. I'm not one of those people who has a 3-year or 5-year plan. My testimony really has been about working hard. But in working hard, I've had people, both men and women, I should say, Brenda, recognizing talent, my skill sets, and my competencies, and then opening up those spaces, most of which have been competitive. So it's not been given to me in a, on a silver platter. I've had to compete for these positions. But I've often found that when I reflect back, it was individual men or women who said, Kate, you should consider this. And thinking about that and being confident to lean in, which I think is something that women, sometimes we shy away from. It doesn't come natural for us. We've been brought up in a society where, gender norms, propel you to behave in a certain way. So that has been my testimony. Why do I do the work that I do? I think I've been in this space for over 25 years now, working for marginalized and vulnerable children, and increasingly over the years, really seeing the face of gender inequality and being very purpose-driven about wanting to be a voice for women and girls.
Right.
But more importantly, giving them the space to speak.
So at no point, I like the way you're like, I don't have a plan. I just work towards achieving my dreams. So for you, you're not those kind of people who are like, oh, so it's 2021 January, I need to have a New Year's plan.
I make resolutions, but to be honest, Brenda, they're not about my career. I make resolutions about exercising more, spending, achieving work-life balance. I've never made a resolution that I'll be here in this year, and I need to do X, Y, Z to do that.
Right.
But as I get older, Brenda, I am beginning to think about, what are those spaces that I need to occupy to really move this agenda forward for girls and women? How can I, what are those spaces that I should be seeking to be truly transformational for girls and women? But it's not one of my annual objectives, yes.
But even as you're climbing the ladder, Kate, to the position that you have now, just right from the day that you go to your employment to now, were there days you doubted your capabilities?
Oh, most certainly, Brenda. There are days I would get the job by merit, and I would sit there and think, oh my, can I deliver on this? But I've also learned as I got older that you don't have to be everything to everyone. And that as a leader, it's important to surround yourself with good talent and a team, particularly within the office, because we're talking about career. The team that surrounds you need to be experts in their own field. And a leader, it's about harnessing that energy, harnessing that talent, harnessing that motivation, and rallying it around a common purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this year's theme talks about, we're in connection with women in leadership. And the year's theme is choose to challenge. So how did you choose to challenge, some of the challenges that you're facing, and how can you encourage other women in the society to handle the challenges they're facing when they're trying to achieve something or handling, an issue that comes along their way?
Yeah, it's interesting that Choose to Challenge, hashtag Choose to Challenge, is something that resonates with Plan International's work in Kenya. We may not have coined it as Choose to Challenge, but when I think about the work we've done over the years, that's exactly what we've been doing, Brenda. We've been challenging gender norms and harmful practices that relegate girls and women to the backseat. We, in specific areas, in Kajiado and Tharaka Nithi, we've challenged female genital mutilation. We believe it's one of the greatest violations on girls' rights, and it is a precursor to teenage pregnancies and to marriages. We've worked in Tharaka Nithi for over 20 years. This is something we have continued to challenge with men, working with men as partners, working with the circumcisers themselves, increasing the awareness of girls themselves to see how FGM is harmful and that they should challenge it, even at the household level, and working with mothers and fathers to understand how this is a violation. So a lot of the work that we do in Plan is just that, Brenda. We choose to challenge in many ways. We choose to occupy spaces where we speak up and we can be bold about the issues that we see that are a violation on children's rights. But more so, what we've increasingly been doing over the years is empowering girls to occupy those spaces and to challenge that.
All right. And you know, Kate, when you're talking about women empowerment, empowering the women, so at what age, one would wonder, should a young girl, you know, start talking about women empowering, and at what age should they now start implementing that women empowerment?
Girls must start having that conversation as early as possible, because it starts from those gender roles, isn't it, that are provided at the household level. When you're a young girl, you see certain roles that are peculiar to girls, but boys will tend to get away with it. They're allowed to go play, or if there are chores to be done, it is the girls who's doing it, while the boy has the privilege to go study. You know, so it starts from those gender disparities and how they manifest themselves, Brenda. They start at the household level.
But then, Kate, one would argue that would be child labor.
But that's what's happening. We do ask our children, you know, could you set the table?
Yeah.
You know, could you go to the shop and fetch this? But that's exactly what I'm saying, Brenda. It is girls who tend to get those assignments and not boys. And so we need to educate our caregivers, our parents, that girls as well need time to go sit and study and prepare, do their schoolwork, prepare for school the next day, because that's what starts hindering the progression, isn't it? And the transition to the higher grades. And the statistics is telling us a story in terms of where gender disparity begins to happen. Yeah, girls fall behind on their schoolwork because of the chores that they get at home. Yeah.
But then, you know, it's good you brought up that in terms of empowering the girl, not only in terms of education and in terms of knowing the position in the society, but also just trying to make them understand the role that they need to play within a family setup. But then at that point, Kate, then it means parents have also failed. We women, we've also failed in raising up our children, because the saddest thing at my age, there's some women, sadly, who don't even know how to do small things in the house, in the kitchen, like even cook an egg, cook tea, make roasted groundnuts, or even maize. Boiled maize.
Yeah, so Brenda, you know, gender equality is not about shunning things that I love to do. As a woman, I love to bake, you know, so I love to cook. I love to cook for my family. I don't find that denigrates me in any way or makes me a lesser person at the household. But it's important that men also play their role, isn't it, at the household level, so that a woman like me or any woman like me is able to get up and go to work and further their career. So it's not so much the women can't do certain skills. I think that's a whole different conversation and a whole different discussion around life skills, yeah? What do we do to impart life skills to both boys and girls? Yeah, but the reverse is also true. If I want to make tea at home, I should be able to do that. If my husband wants to make tea, that's also fine. You know, it's about role, it's about supporting each other at the household level, but it's also allowing both boys and girls to focus on their schoolwork as well.
So what advice would you give to the next, you know, the next generation of female leaders?
Lean in. It's really becoming my mantra. I mentor a lot of young girls and boys who reach out to me in many ways. It's important to lean into the opportunities. It's important to have a mentor who walks that journey with you, but it's important to work hard. There is no shortcut to working hard, and it's important to speak up. It's important to choose to challenge gender inequality. If as a young man, as a boy, I am seeing my sister being oppressed, I should choose to challenge. And the reverse is also true. So that would be my advice for the next generation. Be confident, be humble and be confident. Lean into these opportunities. Understand where you want to go and the skill sets that are required, and be purposeful about getting that. But surround yourself with people who celebrate you and people who egg you on and want the best for you.
In fact, I was about to ask you about people who, you know, encourage you to move on. But Kate, you may agree with me or disagree with me, but at workplaces, you've seen where the older generation, allow me to use that word, the older generation of women, some of them, they look at young people as, you're a threat to me, or you seem like you know it all, so you will just have to adhere to the instructions I've been given to give you. And probably, you know, some use the words like, I've been in this organization for long, so what are you really telling me, you young person?
Yeah, those are some of the realities that we face, but for both young, you know, both young men and women, girls and boys face. I think it's important that people in leadership positions are aware of those nuances and that they're purposeful about addressing them. Some of the things we've done at Plan International is being very deliberate about growing diversity in our workforce. So we have a diversity framework. It informs our hiring. We ensure that there's gender balance in grades. We look at ages, so we do know where the age gap is in terms of ensuring inclusivity in our workforce. So we're very purposeful about looking at what our diversity framework is saying and using that data to inform hiring. And in many cases, we've gone to the second candidate or the third candidate if they're employable, and hired them instead of the first candidate, because it would bring that diversity we're looking for in the workspace. But it's important to also create safe spaces, isn't it, for young people? Increasingly, the workforce is young. We have, what, 72% of our Kenyan population are a youthful population. Any employer who would ignore that statistic does that at their peril, really. And so we do need to recognize that increasingly we're having a youthful workforce joining employment or even self-employed, and our policies and our practices need to ensure that we address some of those biases, Brenda.
All right, and you know, Kate, usually there's this, can I say it, African saying or an English thing that behind every successful man, there's a woman. We can't doubt that. And, you know, as the world marks this this year's International Women's Day, I'd like us to have a look at that story that was done by my colleague Najma Ismail, who is the gender desk editor, talking about women who are actually motivating their husbands who are in the security force.
These are just some of the shocking headlines that we come across regarding Kenyan police officers. The men and women who serve and protect Wananchi are constantly accused of vices such as corruption and extrajudicial killings. But what is normally forgotten is that these men and women have families that are constantly worrying about their well-being. They are relatives, friends, and loved ones.
Ni mengi mtu ambaye ajui kuhusu bibi askari. Bibi askari anapitia changamoto nyingi. Bibi askari akiweka biashara, wengi wao wanafikiria ni hongo kutoka kwa mabwana zao ndio wakaweza kumove on, ambapo hapana. Bibi askari ako na changamoto nyingi ndani ya nyumba. Bibi askari ni mwalimu kwa bwanake, ni daktari kwa bwanake. Ni mtu ambaye bwana akija ndani ya nyumba ana stress ya kazi, lazima wewe umpatie support yako, usimwanze tu na maneno. Kwa hiyo bibi askari lazima ukuwe mpole.
Police officers go through frequent exposure to violence, death and trauma in their day-to-day activities, which weighs heavily on them psychologically and physiologically. Even worse, research shows that police officers tend to either not seek mental health treatment or try to fix their own mental health problems.
Askari anajiua, anaua na bibi na watoto. Akija ndani ya nyumba hakuna maelewano. Mwanamke anampata hakuna moto na yeye ametoka kazini, stress nini, ushaona. Sasa bibi askari lazima ukuwe mpole, si kama wanawake wengine utaweza kupigana na bwanako kila saa.
Sana maaskari wakiwa pale nje, unajua kawaida kudeal na raia ni kazi ngumu. Raia anaona askari maybe kama adui yake, na sisi kama mabibi yao sisi tunawaona tu kama mandugu zetu, cause hawakutrainiwa kuchapa mabibi kufanya nini. So akifika pale maybe alikuwa na stress ya raia, so akifika pale ninafaa kumpokea vizuri, aingia kwa nyumba vizuri, nimuongeleshe vizuri, at least kiakili arudi kwa nyumba vizuri.
But a group of women in the country seeks to break the cycle. The little-known National Police Wives Welfare Association was formed in 2014 by Genetrix Otieno, who saw the challenges her sister was going through as a spouse of a police officer.
The challenge are also ignorance and lack of knowledge among my members because they don't understand Those who doesn't know about it, like our officers, they don't understand the mission and the vision. But I know by time they will know.
Genetrix has taught these women soft skills, empowered them through various income-generating programs, and also hired a counselor who helps them deal with their spouses' day-to-day stress and other mental health issues.
Ningependa kuwahimiza kuwa waweze kuwaruhusu bibi zao waweze kujumuika na mabibi ya askari wengine ndio waweze kuwa kitu kimoja na nguvu yao iwe moja.
Apart from supporting themselves, these women are also finding ways and means for their husbands to support themselves and each other, even through social processes such as sharing. Not much is known about the lives of police officers' wives, nor the responsibilities they shoulder in humanizing the badge. But the role they play in supporting their spouses and keeping their mental health in check is something to be lauded on this International Women's Day. Najma Ismail, KTN News.
You know, I like what the wife to one of the police officers has said, that when we get married to them, we look at them as our husbands, our brothers and sisters. They've not married us, been trained to beat us. So, Kate, I'd like to get your feedback on that. You know, when we look at the police officers, clearly there are women behind their success.
Very true, very true. It goes back to what you were saying, Brenda, behind every successful man is a woman. Yes, indeed, that is true. But I think there's a bigger issue really around what we just saw there, around ensuring that police reforms are gender sensitive, you know, going beyond gender balance to gender mainstreaming, and ensuring that those reforms really look at the gender dynamics in the workforce. And yeah, mental health issues. I think that clip really did speak to the need for ensuring that there is support for our men in uniform and our women in uniform.
All right.
They carry quite a load.
We're about to bring this conversation to an end because I can see Nicholas Wambua already in studio just to bring us up to date with the Swahili News Law Mashinani. But as we begin winding up this conversation, Kate, what are some of the programs you have for the girl child as a Plan International Kenya?
Thank you, Brenda. So we have a variety of programs. Earlier on, I spoke about choosing to challenge female genital mutilation. So we do have programs that do that, focus on increasing awareness around FGM, working with stakeholders, working with former reform circumcisers, and we do this in Tharaka Nithi and in Kajiado. We also have worked in the education space with two key reasons: to ensure that both girls and boys remain in school, but to also ensure that schools continue to be a safe space for girls and boys, because we know that they spend a lot of time in schools. And we do this with funding from different donors, with our own institutionally raised funding. We also do a lot of work in the urban area in Nairobi. We've worked we have a project called Safer and Inclusive Cities project, which looks at strengthening spaces as girls transition, walking around the neighborhoods, the slum areas. They should feel safe. So we've worked a lot with community-based organizations to strengthen their capacity to protect girls, and including partnering with border riders who hitherto were really, seen as perpetrators of abuse for girls. So there's a variety of programs we do. We also work to ensure that economic empowerment of girls. We know we want to stop what we talked about earlier, sex for fish, sex for sanitary towels. So there's a lot we do in that space. We've worked in the health space as well, increasing awareness among youth on non-communicable diseases and, the lifestyle choices they make. We've worked in the health and HIV/AIDS space. So really cutting across health, sexual reproductive health rights, and in, projects that end gender-based violence, ensuring girls and boys stay in school, but also strengthening the resilience of the households as well.
So how does the organization deal with the challenges women and girls, face, like discrimination and exclusion? And when I'm talking about women and girls, I'm talking about women and girls in the interior parts of this country, the grassroots level.
Yeah, very true. One of the things we do to address these challenges is to empower girls. We really believe in the power of girls speaking up for themselves. So one of the things we do as Plan International is build their capacity to confidently speak about the issues that matter to them, but we're also very deliberate about identifying those spaces where they can be heard. We also work at, mashinani level to really increase the awareness of households, communities on the issues that are affecting boys and girls, and particularly girls, because we know that they have been left behind.
All right.
Hence the gender inequality conversation.
All right, in a minute as we wind up, Kate, so talk to us about some of the success stories when dealing with some of the issues affecting the girl child, and how many girls have actually benefited, from your program so far.
Thank you. So just numbers off the top of my head. I know last year we served over 300,000 girls with direct support in many ways, economic empowerment activities, water and sanitation improvements, dignity packs so that they could stay in school. A lot of direct support has been given to girls, and this doesn't include numbers for boys and the homes that they come from. So those are some of the things we've done directly. We've also worked in the health spaces to ensure that girls are able to access sexual reproductive health rights information. We've done economic empowerment activities with them. But if you talk about success, we're very proud of the work we've done to increase girls' agency.
All right.
Yeah.
And let me give you a minute, Kate. Happy International Women's Day. Who's that lady or woman that you want to wish all the best today?
Oh, it would be very hard to single any one of them, but I really want to give a shout out to the women that I work with at Plan International. Right from the headquarters in Nairobi, right down to the field office. I celebrate you. We've been able to deliver a lot for girls because of you being there, choosing to challenge and working with our male counterparts in Plan International to deliver on our mandate for boys and girls and being there and intentional, rescuing girls from early child marriage, from FGM. Oh, Brenda, I could write
the list
a
is
page.
endless.
The list is endless.
All right.
So I want to celebrate the women in Plan International.
All right, and I would celebrate every woman, every mother, including my own mom. But to challenge to every woman today, don't post your mother on social media just to say Happy International Women's Day and you're not calling them. So take that initiative of calling them just to appreciate them, to tell them thank you so much, Mama, for all the struggles you went through to ensure that I'm the kind of woman that I am today, including that message. It goes right to my mom who's watching right now, KTN News Center. Mommy, I love you so much. And happy International Women's Day to all the women and also to all the women here at Standard Group who've made it all that it has been in this company. My name is Brenda Zedder. And thank you so much, Kate Maina, Country Director, Plan International Kenya, for having this discussion with us, International Women's Day. So, Nicholas Wambua up next. Let me not take his time. Up next with Leo Mashinani. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. See you tomorrow.
This is KTN News.
Always be my baby. That's why I trust Dettol to clean, protect, and keep you refreshed every day. I still can't believe how quickly you've grown. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
Picture this. A pastoralist could be grazing a herd of 200 Boran cows. Stay attached to them for years without considering to sell and restock, until a drought comes and wipes out the stock. This leaves a once rich man poor and distraught. Since all this time, his animals had the potential to weigh approximately 600 kilos if he had the knowledge on a money-minting project dubbed feed lotting. To learn more about this and more, watch Beef Farming Show every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. only on KTN Farmers TV.
From the first wave of the coronavirus to a new emergent strain of the same and a race against time to have the vaccine with the highest efficiency possible and limited effects, Kenya is picking up the pieces and continuing from where she stopped. School-going children are back at school, albeit under trees.
The issue of social distancing is a challenge.
The BBI reggae is seemingly not stopping anytime soon despite the hurdles.
BBI inaweka msingi. I am in charge of this government and I am in control.
Healthcare workers across the country feel they have received a short end of the stick from the government. Yet, they are the frontline workers and the last line of defense in the fight against COVID-19.
For every doctor you lose, 10,000 Kenyans are denied services.
The public debt is soaring high against a dipping economy with a possible referendum vote.
As long as they can borrow and do something, it's making sense.
Which way, Kenya?